We shift our focus to Rwanda, where incumbent Paul Kagame is on course to be re-elected president with about 99% of the votes in. The 66-year-old, who helped lead the rebel movement that ended the country's genocide in 1994, has been president for nearly a quarter of a century. He won the last election in 2017 with 99% of the vote. A constitutional change removed term limits that allowed him to stand again.
Let's explore this further now and speak to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, thank you so much for your time this evening. I mean, many people have criticized Rwanda, saying there's no democracy and that people would not be able to exercise their freedom to choose. What is Paul Kagame saying about this issue?
Well, I spoke to Paul Kagame in April about this matter because the reality is that many people have been very critical about him staying in power. But when you look at Rwanda, you'll see that this is a country that experienced a genocide. And therefore, the issue of security is still a critical one. And when you speak to Rwandans, some of them are saying that they need someone who can still ensure that the country is safe, particularly when you look at the tension in the region, where there's a tension between Rwanda and the DRC. But the reality is that many people feel that he has been there for quite a long time. You have Rwandans who are outside the country who are very critical of President Paul Kagame. But when I spoke to him in April, he pointed out that those people who are critical, particularly the Rwandans who are outside the country in exile, are the people who, some of them, not all of them, are wanted in relation to genocide cases in Rwanda. You know that one person was arrested in Cape Town earlier this year, but not all Rwandans that are outside the country were involved in the genocide. Perhaps let's take a listen at what Paul Kagame said, particularly to the Western media and Western powers who have questioned democracy in that country.
They say democracy, and we start singing that as well, even without understanding the meaning. Because for them, when they say, you know, we want to bring you freedom, democracy, you must do this, you must do that. Fine. It's a good sound bite. But why are you struggling also? You're the ones giving us lessons. Why would you be struggling? Elsewhere other than Africa, like the cases you mentioned, whether you talked of Ukraine, you talk about, there are many other things that will crop up outside of Africa, even if they affect Africa. When you see the problems somewhere, some parts of the Middle East, and you have problems maybe in Asia, you have... So maybe these are happening because those who give us lessons about these things are actually failing in their responsibilities.
He's not mincing his words there, and I suppose those who are saying that why hasn't he stepped down since 2000 certainly must not hold their breath.
Yes, indeed. And a day after or 2 days after that interview at a press conference, he emphasized the fact that he is Paul Kagame and he doesn't really care what people are saying. His main mission is to ensure that Rwanda does develop. And when he pointed out to what's happening in other parts of the world, when you look at what happened in America, on Saturday, early hours of the morning, Sunday is South African time, you can actually understand that many countries do have challenges. And I think at the end, when I was asking him where I was asking him about his views about global issues, as he pointed out, that was a follow-up question he was answering in relation to why he doesn't want to step down, because I did ask him that. Earlier on, he had pointed out that when you look at what's happening around the world is in turmoil. But returning to what you said, yes, not mincing his words in terms of his views, but he went further because I did probe him. When is he going to hand over power? Let's take a listen. Mr. President, the elections in Rwanda, what are you saying to your critics who are saying perhaps it's time for a new leader to emerge, but we know that you will be on the ballot?
Yeah, I agree. If there came a new leader, I would be happy. In fact, these critics should come and present themselves.
One would say, though, that, I mean, when we look at reports and listening to what his answer was to your question, is that if the critics can come forward and present themselves, but others are saying that he's silenced those particular critics and they've been stifled and certainly cannot have the climate to emerge, though.
I did ask him that you have a situation where you have people who were killed in South Africa who had fled Rwanda, and that strengthened the argument that he does clamp down on dissent. He said he had no role in that incident, denying those allegations, and him saying that they must come, and most of those people are the people who allegedly committed genocide, and some of them have been tried in other countries such as the United Kingdom and Germany. But those who are in South Africa, nothing has happened. But we know that earlier this year, somebody was arrested in Cape Town, and he is in custody as we speak, and he is expected to appear before the courts in Cape Town based on those allegations. And therefore, that is his views. But the reality is you have those people who are outside of the country who have different perspective. But when you go to Rwanda, when you look at Rwanda in terms of development, when you look at where the country was after 1994, you can see a lot of work has been done. And people often say it's only Kigali. We were able to travel to other areas in rural countrysides of Rwanda. Particularly some people even talk about when you go towards the border with the DRC, you'll see development and roads there. So he is indeed developing the country, but the issue is you have people who are still aggrieved. But maybe during the inauguration, my analysis and my view is that he is going to kind of give an indication that he will be handing over power at some point in time. I don't know whether he will finish his term or he will go to the next elections and then hand over power, because he told me that he has persuaded his party on many occasions to identify a successor, but they still believe in him. And I think my analysis is that it's because people want security, and there's fear that when he leaves office, things are going to fall apart. But then it is time perhaps for him to ensure that you have a strong pool of leaders emerging so that the nation can have confidence that even if he is not in power, the issue of security, the security of Rwanda is guaranteed. But with this current standoff with the DRC, I don't know whether the Rwandans will trust anybody at this moment. That is why you have to address these issues in the Great Lakes region so that all countries in that region, including the DRC, it is at peace, as we know that there are efforts to try and bring Paul Kagame and Tshisekedi to discuss the standoff so that you don't have that conflict where many people have died, women have been raped, children are being used as child soldiers, children are being abused by multinational companies who are doing business and mining in that country. A sad story for the continent.
And it's going to be very interesting to also hear what he outlines as some of his, priorities as he now begins this new tenure. Of course, you're looking at a lot of the reports suggesting that there's now a clear lead. So certainly it is a done deal, one might even say. Thank you so much for your time, Sophie. That's my colleague there, Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International Editor.